Alright guys, if you have an iPhone and you're into bomb-ass hynas, there's a service called Saucy Time. And they had sponsored one of my episodes, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 videos back. And they let me do a test drive, and it's a fantastic service. I just did another test drive, and it was just as fun the second time. What it is it's a website. It has this long list of bomb-ass hynas. Bomb-ass hynas, fool. Like really hot chicks, and you get to pick which one you want, and then you FaceTime with them, and you can talk politics, art, or you can just jerk off, and they will do whatever you want. It's $1.60 a minute, which is a fantastic deal for the quality of these women. I mean, they're dimes. $1.60, you're not going to find a better service like that on the internet, and it's just a lot of fun. So I implore you to check it out. If you use the service, you get a raffle ticket for my special Christmas raffle. I'm going to have a bunch of badass prizes. Speaking of which, I have this Christmas package. It comes in this festive red envelope. And for $60, you get one blow item. So this is a Boston George shirt. Comes with stickers. Some of the stuff signed by Boston George or Christina and Martha Jung. Some of it's not. You get a signed copy of my book, Wasting Talent. And you get a limited edition signed blotter art, perforated, made by Ken Kesey's son. And you get entered into the special Christmas raffle. It's for $60. And if you use the service, Saucy Time, or if you buy one of my Christmas packages, you're going to definitely be helping me out. Have a good Christmas with my family. It's the first Christmas that I'm going to be spending with my son Nico and with my fiancé Karina. I want to get Nico a Power Wheel, and I want to bring them both up to a cabin, rent out a cabin up in Big Bear where it's snowing, and just give them a special Christmas. So Saucy Time service, I will leave the link in the pinned comments and in the description, and $60 for the Christmas package. You can do Venmo, PayPal, or GoFundMe, and all of that information will be listed in the comment section or in the description. So let's get into the story. As I've said multiple times now, this next 4 years, from 2015 to 2019, is definitely the most interesting of my entire life. So if you like my stories, trust me, the best stories are from this point forward, in my opinion. So what had happened last time is I took acid, and I just didn't feel sober anymore. It was weird, like my whole mentality had shifted. I felt clean, even though I was miserable. I was on antipsychotics, I'd gotten bloated, I had a little shriveled up, flaccid, impotent cock that didn't work. And I was basically stoic, apathetic. I wasn't able to show emotions, and it's not that I didn't care, so maybe apathetic isn't the best word, but I just was emotionless. I was stoic. And, you know, after we had relapsed on the LSD, I don't really consider that the actual relapse, but shortly after that, we started smoking weed. Casey was doing it every day. I was doing it about once a week. And I was on federal probation still. On federal probation, if you get a dirty for weed, they'll send you back to prison for it. I'm on state parole now. I smoke weed every day. I'm allowed to do so. They don't care in California. It's legal here recreationally. It's legal here medically. But if you're on federal supervision, they don't even care. But I'm done with that. I'm not on federal paper anymore. But back then, if I'd gotten a dirty for weed, I would have gone back to prison. So I was petrified every time I smoked that I was going to get a dirty, even though I was getting tested maybe once every couple months. But it was random, and I could get busted very easily. But she started smoking weed every day. And about a week after we had done the heroin, because remember, we did the acid, and then we had relapsed on the heroin a week or two after that. So this is like all within like a 2 or 3 week period. This is about a week after the heroin, let's say. She started complaining about her back hurting. She's like, my back's hurting. I need to go to the hospital and get painkillers. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. You just want to get loaded. Just say it. It's all right if you want to get loaded. And she's like, no, my back hurts. It was like a completely made up problem. Like I'd never heard her bitch about her back, and all of a sudden she needed to get painkillers and go to the ER. I'm like, do you really need to go to the ER? Can't we just go to like a urgent care center or something? And she's like, no, I need to go to the ER and I need painkillers. So we go to the ER, and it's LA. She's like, my back hurts. I need Percocets. He's like, okay, here's 30 Percocets. Gives her some like faux examination, like barely touches her and just writes us the script, and we're on our way. I end up taking 20 of them. She takes 10. And we got loaded. We got loaded again. So we had done the acid. We start smoking weed again. We do heroin. And then we do the Percocets. And the Percocets, when we'd done the heroin, I had told my writer friend Tony O'Neill. I had told my friend Max. But when we did the Percocets, we didn't tell anyone. We were already starting to be shady drug addicts again. Not telling people what was going on. And a few days after that, she gets another call from back east, from Pittsburgh, from the nurse again. Remember, the nurse had called the first time and been like, your father has 48 hours to live. You need to jump on a plane immediately. And we did. And it was very emotionally draining on both me and her. Her, because obviously it's her dad. He's on his second liver. He was a severe alcoholic. He had gotten cirrhosis. He had already gotten a liver transplant, got a second liver, and now he had drinking himself into a state of cirrhosis, and he was literally about to die. And it was hard on me because when we had gone out there, essentially I had camped out in the ICU. And I'd get to know people, and, people be all optimistic. Yeah, my wife just got in a car accident. She got dinged up a little bit, but she's going to be just okay. And then the doctor would come out 15 minutes later and be like, your wife's dead. And he'd be like, no! And start throwing chairs. And that's hard just dealing with that once. I was dealing with that over and over. I probably saw 20 people lose significant people in their lives, whether it be their wife, their daughter, their son, their girlfriend, whatever. And it was really, it just affected me really negatively. I hated it. I hated being in the ICU and being around that much loss. So that was the first time, and we had relapsed shortly thereafter. Second time, she gets a call again. And they said, you need to get out here within the next, he probably has 24 hours to live this time. You got to come out here to say goodbye. So she starts freaking out. She's like, we got to jump on a plane again. And last time we had just done that. We had just jumped right on a plane and gone out to Pittsburgh. This time, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go for a number of reasons. It was really hard on me the first time, as I had explained before. Just being in that ICU. It was being on the antipsychotics and just being as stoic as I wasn't emotionally available. So I felt like I did more harm than good. I wasn't able to show empathy. I wasn't able to show compassion, even though I felt bad for her and I wanted to comfort her. I was a wall. I didn't have emotions. The antipsychotics really affected me, and I was just very quiet, and she interpreted that as me not caring. So it affected her negatively the first time we had gone because I was emotionally unavailable. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to go. I just felt like I wasn't going to contribute anything positively to it because I couldn't. I had this buffer from the antipsychotics which didn't allow me to express compassion or warmth the way that I wanted to with her. Second reason is I had a couple readings coming up. Now, so Wasting Talent had started picking up now, and I started getting offered to do readings. Readings, in case you don't know, it's kind of like when you're in a band and you go play at a bar, or you go play at a small venue. When you're a writer, you go to a bookstore, you go to a bar, and you read out of your book, or you read a story you wrote. And it's just like in the music world, when you're a smaller known writer, you usually open for bigger writers. I had a really big reading coming up in September for Jerry Stahl. Now, Jerry Stahl was one of my biggest influences when I was growing up. He was a screenplay writer that lived in LA. He wrote Alf, he wrote Twin Peaks, he wrote a bunch of big hit TV shows in the 80s. He was also smoking crack and shooting heroin. So he had this double life. He was a junkie and he was a writer. And he wrote this fantastic memoir called Permanent Midnight. It was made into a movie in the 90s starring Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. Very obscure film, but I loved it. And Jerry was just a huge influence on me. And he had asked me and this other guy, Joe Clifford, to help celebrate the 20th anniversary of his book, Permanent Midnight. And that was like huge for me. You know, that's like opening for like a huge band when you're just starting out. So that was coming up in September, but before that, I had been invited by a guy named Joe Clifford to come and do a reading up in Berkeley, California called Lip Service West. Both of these videos, both of these readings, the Lip Service West in Berkeley and me opening for the 20th anniversary of Permanent Midnight, are both on my channel. You can watch these videos. Joe Clifford had written a book called Junkie Love that I liked a lot. And the reason that I met him was I had asked him to do a blurb for my book. A blurb is like on the back of a book when you have like endorsements from other writers or from magazines. And usually you ask a writer to give you a blurb. You know, you ask a more famous writer to give you a blurb, and it's supposed to give you credibility, even though honestly nobody gives a fuck about blurbs. It's just kind of like self-validation. But I had asked Joe to give me a blurb, and the blurb he had given me was, "The work exudes enthralling, and the motherfucker can flat out write. Joe Clifford, author of Junkie Love." And I'd met him, you know, that's on the back of my book. I'd met Joe, I had met him over the internet, and I'd asked him for a blurb, and he was generous enough to give me one. He wrote Junkie Love, which is a book I like a lot. And he's written like 10 books now. He's a best-selling author. Really, really great writer. And we were both on the bill to open for Jerry Stahl, to open for the 20th anniversary for Permanent Midnight. That was coming up in September. And so Joe had said, hey, before you come up or before we do the Jerry Stahl reading in LA, why don't you come up to Northern California and do a Lip Service West, which is a reading, it's like a show that he puts on every couple months. He picks like 6 or 7 writers, and you read like, you know, a short story that you wrote. A short story I wrote was about when I'd gotten pulled over with a kilo of coke and a gun, with Black Chris in the car. That video's up. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. And I was supposed to go up there to do that reading. And that was like the first big, I'd already done one reading in Santa Barbara in my hometown, and it was just basically like friends and family that had shown up. But this was like the first time that I was going to go be part of like a big reading. So I was really looking forward to that. And that was like a week from, it was like 10 days from when Casey got me the call to go out to Pittsburgh. So the first reason I didn't want to go back out there was because I was emotionally unavailable and I thought I wasn't going to be able to contribute anything positively. The second reason was I really wanted to do this reading. So of course she's like, you're a selfish piece of shit. You care more about your career than you do about me. And I'm just like, look, it's hard on me. We fucking relapsed last time. It's the kind of thing where you need to go and you need to say goodbye to him. It's something you need to do. You know, last time I was just in the way. It's going to interfere with this reading I have coming up. It doesn't, and plus we had to pay for it, you know. It would have been an extra ticket. It would have been like over $1,000 for both of us to go. There were multiple reasons that I was giving her why I didn't want to go, and in retrospect, I should have gone with her. Definitely. I should have been there for her. I mean, losing your father, I just lost one of my best friends, and it was incredibly hard on me. Can't even imagine losing your father. So I made a mistake. Definitely in hindsight, I can see that. But at the time, I really just didn't want to go. So she went by herself, and she was a wreck. She was in shambles, emotionally. And I didn't want to be alone in Santa Barbara, so I ended up, or in LA, so I ended up driving up to Santa Barbara. My best friend Jeff, it was like his 31st birthday, and I decided, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy a bottle of champagne, and I'm going to go get drunk with my best friend, like on the DL at his house. I hadn't had a drink in like 3 or 4 years because, you know, I'd been sober for 3 years, and then before that, probably the last drink I had was in prison, drinking Pruno. So I wanted to just get a bottle of champagne, go to his house, and get drunk. You know, get drunk with my best friends just for old times. So I ended up showing up at his house, and there's this other guy there. Now, this other guy, I don't even want to say his name because I hate this person so much, but he was my closest friend in high school. And he's the guy whose parents beat him up when I was on mushrooms, and I'd gotten into coke with him, I'd gotten into heroin with him, and he was over there. I hadn't seen him for a long time. His eyes were pinned, bloodshot. We could tell he was loaded. We didn't say anything. Jeff and I kind of were like, damn, that dude's gout out on heroin. We kind of just said that amongst, to ourselves. Now, Jeff and this other guy wanted to go out and party at Fiesta. Fiesta is like the biggest party event of the year in Santa Barbara. It's kind of like Mardi Gras. And it's, the bars are just cracking. There's a bunch of house parties. Michael Jordan bartends at one of the local bars. It's just this huge, huge event. Mariachi music plays. It's like, something you'd see in Mexico, but it's in Santa Barbara. It's just this huge party atmosphere. And they wanted to go out and go to Fiesta. It's like the first week of August. And I said, no, my fiance's dad is dying from cirrhosis of the liver. What if somebody posts a picture online somewhere? I don't want to go. It's sketchy for me. And so we asked this other guy that's there, we're like, hey, dude, are you loaded? He's like, yeah. And so Jeff and I are like, okay, instead of going out to Fiesta, why don't we stay home? We'll get coke, we'll get heroin, and we'll shoot speedballs all day. And it took us like 2 seconds to come up with that plan. So that's exactly what happened. We got an 8-ball of coke and we got a gram of black tar heroin. And we did speedballs all night. Casey's calling me. At this point, I'm all bug-eyed because I've been shooting coke. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing, just watching DVDs with Jeff. She's like, okay, you're behaving yourself, right? I'm like, yeah. I have like blood stains all over my arms. Disgusting. And we do this all night. Shoot coke and heroin. And around 4 in the morning, my parents live probably 15 minutes from Jeff's house. And I'm like, I didn't want to drive because I was so bug-eyed from shooting the coke. I was, it's not like snorting cocaine. When you shoot coke, it's just so intense. It's so ridiculous. You just are instantly a weirdo. And I was like, I'm just going to walk home. The worst decision I ever made. I end up walking home and I sleep into like 3 in the afternoon. And whenever I end up going to sleep. Casey had called me like 60 times, sent me a bunch of text messages. Where the fuck are you? What's going on? And, I was like, I don't know, honey. I slept all day, which was unlike me. It was the first sign that something was up. But she didn't really know what was going on yet. But it was very unlike me to sleep in all day. And she's like, that's shady. I'm like, honey, I just, I stayed up watching movies with Jeff. Then I walked home. And why did you walk home? Did you drink last night? I'm like, oh, God. And, she was already hysterical because her father was passing away. He didn't die right away, like they had said. He didn't die within the first 24 hours. And it was kind of like the same situation as last time. She was just spending all day at the hospital with him. So my dad gives me a ride back to Jeff's house, and him and this other guy are sitting on the couch, bug-eyed, still doing the same thing that they were doing when I left at 4 in the morning. They're shooting speedballs. And they're like, hey, man, do you want a shot? And I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do one. So I do one, and everyone knows when you relapse on heroin, you do it one day, you're fine. 2 days, day 2 is kind of like the bonus day. Don't ever go to day 3, because then you're fucked. Then you're strung out again. So everyone just tries to do day 1 and 2, and then not do it the 3rd day. And if you don't do it the 3rd day, you can kind of get away with it without being dope sick. So I do the speedballs the 2nd day, and then that kind of bleeds into the 3rd day, and now I'm on a run. And Casey starts getting suspicious because I'm pulling out, my behavior's kind of erratic. I'm pulling out $120 at 3:30 in the morning. We have a joint Wells Fargo account, so she's seeing this on her online bank statement. She's like, why are you pulling out all this money? You spent like $400 in 3 days. And I'm like, yeah, baby, I'm just getting you presents. And, because her birthday was coming up in a couple weeks. And I could tell she didn't buy that. So I had seen her. The only social media that we did still have was Twitter. And the reason we had that was because nobody else our age had it. And we were artists. She was a photographer. I was a writer. We figured we had to have some social media. And she had tweeted. She had done a tweet with a photo. And she had done a picture of an escalator. And she had said, going to say goodbye to my father, I wish that I had a Cruel Intentions moment. And what she was referring to in the movie Cruel Intentions with Ryan Felipe, I barely remember it, but I know that towards the end of the movie, the main star is going up an escalator and like Ryan Felipe is like standing at the top and it's like some romantic scene, something like that. So she had said, you know, I'm going to see my dead father, which had a Cruel Intention moment. I was like, man, made me feel like such a piece of shit because here I am not doing coke anymore, but I'm strung out on heroin. I'm up to like 2 grams a day. It's only been like a week. So she comes back and she flies back into LAX. And so I had to drive from Santa Barbara down to LAX, and I looked completely strung out. When I get boils all over my face, and I start scratching them, and they turn into these big, like, silver dollar size, like, looks like I have AIDS or something. I have these huge, like, pancake sores. It's worse than the before picture of Proactive. It's like, I look like I have leprosy or something. Like, I literally get these, like, spots all over me. I had, like, boils coming out of my eyelids. I look like some fucking swamp creature. Completely greasy. My hair's in a disarray. Haven't showered for a week. People have commented about this. I get a water phobia when I'm strung out. I lose my sex drive and I stop showering. And people are like, that doesn't happen to me. It's like, if you're strung out enough, you don't want to have sex and you don't want to shower. Every time I'm strung out, it gets like that. So I haven't showered. I have like just the crustiest boxers on. I smell like the used linen bin at the county jail, greasy with these silver dollar, you know, sores all over me. Look like I have AIDS. And I come up with this, what I think is a clever idea. I get a piece of cardboard and I write Cruel Intentions moment on it. I spelled like intentions wrong. And I go stand on the top of this escalator. I get to LAX a little early. Stand on the top of the escalator with this cardboard sign, thinking it's going to be this romantic moment. But I look like a celebrity mugshot. That's how shot. I'm like holding this cardboard, like, and she sees me and she's just like, "You're on drugs!" And like, everybody at the airport's looking, and she just gets the Cruel Intentions cardboard and rips it in half. She's like, "You are on drugs!" And I'm like, "What? Jesus Christ. I did have drugs on me. I had drugs like in my pocket." I'm like, "Shh." I'm like looking, there's like a cop. I'm like, "Hey, chill out." She's like, "You're on drugs. I know it. Look at you. You smell. You fucking smell like shit. You're on drugs." I'm like, "Okay, yes, I'm strung out." She's like, "I knew it. I knew you were strung out. My dad is dying of cirrhosis of the liver and you're here doing fucking drugs." Everybody's looking. I'm just like, I grab her luggage. I'm like hurrying out. And she's like, "Give me the keys. Give me the keys. I'm driving. I'm not going to let a junkie drive me." So I was like, okay. So I like put the luggage in our car. She starts driving. The whole time that we're driving back to Encino, where we live, we're getting in this like nasty fight. And I don't remember exactly what was said, but she said something where like she crossed the line. We're probably driving about 20 miles an hour in some residential area by Ventura Boulevard, and I just open the car door and I jump out of the car, and we're going like over 20 miles an hour. I tumble on the road. I'm like, I just like fall, scrape up my knees. I'm blood everywhere. And I'm like, I look back up at the car, expecting her to like slam on the brakes and pick me up, and I just watch her peel the fuck off. I'm like, and I left my cell phone in there. I'm covered in blood. I'm going up to people, and so I get on Ventura Boulevard. I'm going up to people. I'm like, "Can I use your cell phone?" And like, I have like these big like blotchy sores all over me, blood. I look like a swamp creature. I should not be out in public, and people are like not letting me use their phone. So we're probably like 10 miles from our condo, and I have to walk that whole way. So it takes me hours to get home. I finally get back. I knock on her door. You know, I'm completely out of breath. She's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Dude, I love you." I'm like pleading my case. "Please, baby." And she's like, "No, fuck you. It's over." I'm like, "Well, you have my phone and car keys." So the door opens just a little bit with the chain, and she just throws my phone out. And I'm like, "Where's my car keys?" And she's like, "I'll give you your keys in 30 minutes. You need to just get away from our apartment, and I'll text you, and I'll tell you where your keys are." And I'm like, "What?" was like, whatever. So I take my phone. My phone's on like 2%. So I'm like, fuck, I need to like, I can't use it really. I need to make sure that I get the text message from her. And finally she texts me about 30 minutes later. And she's like, okay, your keys are on your upper left tire. So I walk to our car in the underground parking garage. And sure enough, the keys on the upper left tire. So I get in the car. And there's no way I'm leaving. I want to see what's going on. So I go and I move the car to another parking spot so that maybe if she goes down and looks in the parking lot, she'll think that I left. Because I'm like, now I'm starting to think in my delusional head, I'm starting to think that maybe there's like another guy or something. So I kind of hide out, and finally I see her leave our condo. And so like she walks out and she walks it's a huge complex. So she's walking like through the complex. I'm walking behind her, very secretive, you know, like very covert, ninja-like. You know, I look like a swamp creature. I'm like walking behind her. And so she ends up getting to the front of the complex, and I see this like Honda pull up with this really good-looking tan guy. Shaved head, very good-looking guy. And she like goes up and talks to him for a second, and then she goes to sit in the car with him. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I just charge the car and just start hitting the glass. I'm like, what the fuck? And I crack it. I literally crack this glass, right? Literally cracks. And the car just peels off. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, she's cheating on me. My phone's dead, right? And I have money. I had money in my wallet. So I end up going, this is a long time ago, I think I end up going and buying a phone charger at the gas station. Somehow I get my phone charged and I start, texting her, but she's blocking me. And so now I'm convinced that she's cheating on me. This good-looking tan guy picked her up, and I'm texting her, but she's blocked me. And finally she calls me, and I'm like, who is the hot tan dude? And she's like, hot tan dude? What the fuck are you talking about? She's like, you're a psychopath. That was my Uber driver. And she's like, why are you calling the dude hot? And I'm like, I'm so emotional. I'm calling this guy hot. I'm like, who's the hot tan dude? And she's like, he's my Uber driver. This is in 2015. This Uber was like a brand new thing at the time. Like I'd never even heard of it. So I still think that she's cheating on me with the good-looking tan guy. And she's basically tells me on the phone that it's over and that she never wants to see me again. She can't believe that she went to Pittsburgh and that, I was selfish enough to relapse. And like I wasn't there for the first time when she'd gone, and now it was even worse because I was using. And I'm like, but you used with me, and it didn't matter to her. So I get in my car and I just pull up to like some church parking lot. I keep calling her and blowing her up, but she blocks me. And when someone blocks you, you can press star 67 and then you can call and it'll go through. But she's hip to that because she's getting calls from a blocked number, so she knows not to pick it up. And finally my parents call me. And they, they tell me that Casey had told them that I'd relapsed, which is, like, I was really upset about because I don't know, I never like to bring parents into it. And my dad was very calm, and he's like, look, I'm not mad at you. I love you, but you need to go into treatment, and that's really your only option. You have to go to treatment. And I was like, what do you mean I have to go to treatment? All I care about right now is getting her back. Like my addiction is the least of my problems. But my dad said, because I'm like, well, can I come up to the house? He goes, no, nope. And I'm locked out of the condo, so I can't go there. I can't go up to my parents' house. My parents are saying that I'm not allowed in their life unless I go to treatment. And my dad's like, look, Casey will probably come back, but you need to go get treatment. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. If I go to treatment right now, I'll never see her again. I knew that it was like, it was just a very fragile moment. And my dad's like, look, if you don't go to treatment, you're definitely never going to see her again because she's so upset with you that you relapsed. So I'm sitting in this parking lot, and I have nowhere to go. I end up hanging up with my dad because I tell him that I don't want to go to rehab, and my dad said, okay, well, when you decide to do the right thing, then you call me. But until then, I'm not going to help you with anything. And we had a joint bank account, but Casey had told me on the phone that she was going to cancel the account. I mean, she had like added me onto it. She was like the primary person on it. So I was going to be completely cut off for money. But before that could happen, I went and I got some seedy motel in like, I think Chatsworth or something. And I kind of just holed up in this motel. And we will get into what happened after this in the next episode of The Relapse. I appreciate each and every one of you. Remember, we got the Christmas special going on, and be sure to check out Saucy Time. Next time, we will continue where I'm in the seedy motel and what happens with everything that's going to come. Appreciate you. Palabra.